There are moments in life that divide everything into a before and an after. For me, that moment arrived in the form of a crumpled, folded note handed over by the trembling hands of my granddaughter during a vacation that was supposed to be perfect. My name is Martha Evans. I am 60 years old, and I never imagined that happiness could shatter so quickly. It was July, and we had been planning this trip to Miami Beach for months. My son, Ethan, his wife, Lauren, my one-year-old granddaughter, Isabelle, and I. A week at an oceanfront resort. I had saved up to pay for my part without them knowing. I wanted to feel useful, not like a burden. The first day was like a dream. We had pancakes and bacon together on the patio with an ocean view. Isabelle ran to the beach with her yellow bucket, the same one she had used since she was little. Ethan took a picture of me with his phone and said, "Mum, you look happy." And I was. After my husband Robert passed away 5 years ago, these moments with my family were all I had left. But that afternoon, while Ethan and Lauren went snorkeling, something changed. Isabelle approached me by the pool. I was sitting in a chair under an umbrella reading a novel I never finished. She sat down next to me, soaking wet. Her hair stuck to her face. She didn't say anything at first. She just looked at me with those dark eyes she inherited from her father. Then she pulled a piece of paper from the pocket of her bathing suit. It was wrinkled and damp. She handed it to me without smiling. "Open it when you're alone. Grandma," she whispered. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the breeze. "What is this?" "Honey." "Just open it. Please." She stood up and ran back to the pool as if nothing had happened. But her shoulders were tense, and I, with that paper in my hands, felt that something bad was about to begin. I waited until Ethan and Lauren returned. I faked normalcy during dinner, but when we got to our rooms, I was sharing one with Isabelle. I closed the bathroom door and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was Isabelle's, shaky, written in haste. "Grandma, fake that you are sick and go home now. Please do not ask me why. Just do it. I'm begging you." My hands trembled. I read the message 3 times. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. What was going on? Why was my granddaughter asking me for something like this? What did she know that I didn't? I left the bathroom and found her lying down with her back to me. She wasn't asleep. I could see the tension in her neck. "Isabelle," I whispered. "What's wrong?" She didn't turn around. "You'll know tomorrow. Grandma, just do what I asked." I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the ocean through the open window. That crumpled paper was under my pillow, as if it were a bomb about to explode. And the next day, 30 minutes after faking an unbearable stomachache, I discovered something that chilled me to the bone, something that changed everything I thought I knew about my family. The next morning, I woke up with my stomach truly churning, not from illness, but from fear. Isabelle was already awake when I opened my eyes. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, looking at me. When our eyes met, she nodded slowly, as if giving me permission to do what I had to do. We went down to breakfast. Ethan was in a good mood, planning a boat ride for the day. Lauren was checking her phone, smiling at something she was reading. Everything seemed normal, perfect even. but I felt that paper burning in my robe pocket. "Ethan," I said, interrupting his enthusiasm. I think I ate something that didn't agree with me. He looked up from his fruit plate. "Are you okay?" "Mom? My stomach hurts a lot, and I think I have a little fever." Lauren touched my forehead with the back of her hand. Always so attentive. Always so perfect. "You don't have a temperature. Martha, maybe you just need to rest a little." "No, it's more than that." I forced my voice to sound weak. "I think I need to go home. To my doctor. I have a feeling." Ethan put his fork down on the table. "Mom, we're in Miami Beach. There are hospitals here if necessary. I'd rather be home. Please." "Son, I know my body." I saw something in Isabelle's eyes. Relief. And also terror. Ethan sighed. Lauren exchanged a look with him that I couldn't decipher. "All right," my son finally said. "I'll take you to the airport. We can change your ticket." No, I hurried to say. "You stay. Enjoy yourselves. I can take a taxi and arrange my flight. I'm not going to ruin your vacation." "Mum," I insist. "Ethan, I'll be fine. I just need to rest in my own bed." Lauren smiled. It was a strange smile. One of relief. "If you're sure, Martha. But call us when you arrive." 2 hours later, I was in a taxi headed for the airport. I had paid $150 to change my ticket. Isabelle had hugged me at the hotel door with a strength that scared me. "I love you, Grandma," she whispered in my ear. "Forgive me." "Why are you asking me to forgive you, my love?" But she just shook her head and ran back inside. The flight to Atlanta lasted a little over an hour. Every minute felt eternal. What was I going to discover? Why had Isabelle insisted so much that I leave? I arrived home at 3:00 the afternoon. My house, the same one where I raised Ethan, the same one where my husband Robert died in his favorite armchair, watching the sunset through the garden window. Everything was silent. I left my suitcase by the entrance and walked slowly through the living room. Nothing out of place. The same furniture. The same photographs on the walls. Ethan as a child. Ethan graduating from college. Ethan the day he married Lauren 13 years ago. Then I heard something. A noise upstairs on the second floor. In my bedroom. My heart started pounding so hard I thought I was going to faint. I went up the stairs slowly, clinging to the railing. Each step creaked beneath my feet. My bedroom door was ajar, and what I saw when I pushed it open completely took the air out of my lungs. Lauren, my daughter-in-law, my son's wife, my granddaughter's mother. She was standing in front of my dresser, opening the drawers. She had papers in her hands, my papers. Documents for my deed, my will, my bank accounts. And she wasn't alone. A man I had never seen was with her. Tall, thin, wearing dark glasses. They were checking everything. They were taking pictures of documents with their cell phones. Lauren looked up and she saw me. The color drained from her face. Martha, what are you doing in my house? My voice sounded stronger than I expected. Who is he? The man quickly put away his phone and walked towards the door. He passed me without looking. I heard his steps going down the stairs. The front door opened and closed. Lauren stayed there, my documents still in her hands. I can explain, she began. But I couldn't hear anymore because in that moment I understood everything. I understood why Isabelle had given me that note. I understood why my granddaughter had risked everything to save me. And I understood that my family, the only one I had left, was about to fall apart before my eyes. Lauren put the papers down on my dresser. Her hands were shaking. Martha, It's not what it looks like. It's not what it looks like? I repeated her words, as if they were another language. You're in my house, in my bedroom, going through my private documents with a stranger. What part isn't what it looks like? She ran her hands through her hair. That gesture she always made when she was nervous. I had seen it 1,000 times in these 13 years. When Isabelle had a high fever. When Ethan lost his job 3 years ago. When my husband died and she cried in my arms. How could she be the same person? Please sit down, she said softly. Let me explain. I don't want to sit down. I want you to tell me what you were doing here. Lauren took a deep breath. She looked toward the window as if searching for the right words, or perhaps looking for a lie she could maintain. Ethan and I are going through a difficult time financially. I know you told me. That's why I paid for half of this trip. Yes, and we appreciate it. But it's more serious than we let on. She sat down on the edge of my bed. My bed, where I slept with Robert for 35 years. Ethan has debts. A lot of them. From a business that went wrong. We are about to lose our house. I felt something constrict in my chest. Maternal worry. Ethan was my son. My only son. Why didn't you tell me? I can help. Lauren looked up. There was something in her eyes that I couldn't decipher. Because we knew you would say that. But you have expenses. Too. Martha, your pension isn't much. This house is big and old. It needs constant repairs. That's for me to decide. Lauren, it's my money. My house. I know. I know. She rubbed her temples. But we thought you might be willing to sell the house to us for a fair price. Of course, and you could move in with us. Isabelle would be happy to have you closer. I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. Sell you my house. Or put it in our name to avoid future legal problems, so that when you're no longer here, there won't be any complications with heirs or taxes. I am perfectly healthy. Chloe, and Ethan is my only heir. What complications? She didn't answer right away. And in that silence, I began to understand. Who was that man? I asked. A financial advisor. A friend. He's helping us organize everything. Organize what exactly? Martha, please. Don't make this more difficult than it already is. I'm not making anything difficult. You entered my house without permission. You went through my things. You took pictures of my documents. We needed to know how much everything is worth, to crunch the numbers, to see if it's feasible. I sat down then, not because I wanted to, but because my legs couldn't support me anymore. Does Ethan know you're here? Lauren looked away. He will. He agrees with the idea of you selling us the house, but he didn't know I was coming today. He thought you were right about your stomachache. And Isabelle. How did she know? Lauren's face hardened. Isabelle heard things she shouldn't have. Conversations between Ethan and me. She adores you, Martha. She's very protective of you. Sometimes too much. Something in her tone gave me the chills. What do you mean too much? Just that she's a child, and children don't understand the complexities of adult life. They don't understand that sometimes difficult decisions have to be made. I stood up. Then I looked her straight in the eye. I want you out of my house. Lauren. Martha. Now. She stood up. She smoothed her shirt. She regained that perfect composure that always characterized her. I'm going to call Ethan. He'll explain it better. Maybe you don't want to listen to me, but it will be different with your son. You can call whoever you want, but get out of my house. Lauren walked toward the door. She stopped at the frame and looked at me one last time. Think about it. Martha, think about Isabelle, about her future, her education. She's going to be starting middle school. We need to give her the best. A grandmother can't pay for her college. Sophia has the best. She has a grandmother who loves her. And with those words, she left my room. I heard her footsteps going down the stairs, the door closing, the sound of a car driving away. I stayed there, standing in the middle of my bedroom. The documents were still on my dresser, scattered, evidence of an invasion, of a betrayal. I picked up my phone. I had 3 missed calls from Ethan, but I didn't call him back. Instead, I dialed another number, one I hadn't used in years. The number for Mr. Harrison, the lawyer who had handled Robert's will. Because now I understood that this wasn't just about money. This was about something much darker. And if Isabelle had felt the need to warn me, it was because my granddaughter knew something I hadn't discovered yet. Something that was about to change everything I thought I knew about my family. Mr. Harrison answered on the 3rd ring. Mr. Harrison. This is Martha Evans, Robert Evans' widow. Mrs. Evans. Of course I remember you. How are you? Has it been 4 years since we settled the will? 5. And I need to see you today if possible. There was a pause. Mr. Harrison was an observant man. He always had been. Did something happen? I'd rather talk in person. Can I see you at 5:0 inches the afternoon? Does that work? I looked at the clock. It was 3:30. I'll be there. I hung up and sat on the living room sofa, the same one where Robert used to read the newspaper every morning. It still held his scent. Or maybe it was just my imagination clinging to what no longer existed. My phone vibrated. Ethan. I looked at the screen. his smiling photo next to Isabelle at her last birthday. I let it vibrate until it stopped. Then it started again. Once. Twice. 3 times. Finally, I answered. "Mom." "What happened?" Lauren called me crying. "She says you kicked her out of the house." "Hello. Ethan. How's the vacation?" "Mom, don't play games." "What is going on?" "What do you think is going on?" My voice sounded colder than I intended. "Your wife entered my house without permission. She went through my private documents with a stranger. She explained it to me. It was a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" "Mom, listen. I know it looks bad, but we had to crunch the numbers. We needed to know if selling your house could save us." I felt a sharp pain in my chest. Not physical. It was something worse. "Ethan, you are my son. If you need help, you ask me for it. We talk. You don't send your wife to rummage through my things as if I were already dead." "It wasn't like that." "God. Mom, you always dramatize everything." Those words cut me more than any knife. I dramatize? Yes. It's always been like that. Ever since Dad died. Everything is a drama. You can't accept that life goes on. That we have real problems. Adult problems. I closed my eyes. I took a deep breath. "Ethan, I'm 60 years old. I raised a son alone after your father died. I've maintained this house. I've taken care of myself without being a burden to anyone. I am not dramatic. I am a woman who deserves respect." "I know, Mom, and we do respect you. That's why we're asking for your help." Asking or taking. Silence on the other end. "Look," Ethan continued in a softer pace, more calculated tone. "I know it was a mistake for Lauren to go without telling you. She is very stressed. I am very stressed. We owe $200,000. If we don't get it in 3 months, we lose our house. Isabelle would have to change schools. Everything would fall apart. $200,000. It was a lot of money. But I had savings. I had this house valued at almost $2 million. I had Robert's pension and mine. Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because we knew you would want to help and we didn't want to put that burden on you. But if you want me to sell you my house..." "Not sell it," he interrupted. "Put it in our name to protect it. So that when you... well, you know, so that there are no legal problems. So that everything stays in the family." There was something in the way he said it. A coldness. A rush. "Ethan, I'm healthy. I could live another 20 years. Of course. Mom. No one is saying otherwise." But his tone said exactly the opposite. "What if I don't want to sell? What if I prefer to lend you the money?" Another pause. "It's more complicated than that. The debts are in the company's name. We need something bigger. Collateral. A guarantee." "My house is a guarantee?" "Something like that." I got up from the sofa. I walked toward the window. The garden was neglected. The azaleas needed trimming. Robert always took care of that. Ethan. I need time to think. We don't have time. Mom. The creditors are pressuring us. How much time? Weeks? Maybe days? Days. My voice rose without me being able to control it. And you take me on vacation while you plan this. We didn't plan it that way. The trip opportunity came up and we thought it would be good for everyone to clear our heads. Or to keep me away while Lauren went through my things. Stop it. Mom? Stop with the paranoia. And there it was. The anger. The true face behind the plea. I want to talk to Isabelle, I said. Isabelle is at the pool. Find her. Mom. Find her. Ethan. Now. I heard noises. Footsteps. Ethan's voice calling Isabelle in the distance. Confused voices. And then finally my granddaughter's voice. Grandma. My love. Are you okay? Yes. Her voice sounded small. Scared. Are you okay? I'm fine. Thank you for warning me. Silence. I heard someone say something in the background. Probably Lauren. Grandma. I'm sorry. I didn't want to cause trouble. You didn't cause anything. Honey, you did the right thing. Dad says I exaggerated. That I misinterpreted things. My heart broke a little more. Isabelle, listen to me closely. You didn't misinterpret anything. You are a very smart and very brave girl. I have to hang up. Grandma. Mum is calling me. I love you, my angel. No matter what happens, remember that I love you. I love you, too. The call cut off. I stayed there, phone in hand, feeling like everything solid in my life was crumbling. My son, my daughter-in-law, my house, my future. When had all this begun? When did I stop being the mother Ethan respected to become an obstacle he needed to remove? I thought of all those Sunday barbecues, all those times I watched Isabelle when they needed to go out, all the times I said yes when maybe I should have said no. I thought of Robert's funeral, Ethan crying in my arms, Lauren organizing everything with cold efficiency, and me numb with grief, letting them make decisions for me. Your dad would want you to be calm, Ethan had told me. Then we'll take care of everything. Since when did taking care of everything mean taking control? I looked at the clock. 4:20. I had to get ready to see Mr. Harrison. I changed my clothes. Dark pants and a white blouse. I brushed my hair, still brown with some grey strands that I refused to dye. Robert always said they made me look distinguished. Before leaving, I went upstairs to my bedroom again. I took the documents that Lauren had left, scattered deeds, will, bank statements. I put them in my purse. And then I saw something I hadn't noticed before. On my desk, next to the lamp Robert gave me for our 20th anniversary, there was a manila folder. It wasn't mine. I opened it. Inside were copies of my documents, copies of my will, and something else. A notarized document half filled out with my name, with the address of this house. A power of attorney to transfer the property. They already had the form ready. Only my signature was missing. I felt the world tilt. I sat on the bed because my legs wouldn't hold me. They weren't planning on asking me for the house. They were planning on taking it. And suddenly, I understood why Isabelle had been so scared. She had seen this document. She had heard conversations. She knew something was terribly wrong and had risked everything to save me. I put the document in my purse. I locked the house. I got into my car with trembling hands. As I drove through the streets of Atlanta, one question hammered in my head over and over. At what point had my family decided I was more valuable dead than alive? If this story has touched you, please subscribe to the channel and share the video to help me grow and reach more people. As I drive through the streets of Atlanta, I think about how many women must have gone through this. How many must have trusted too much? Have you also been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I want to read them. At 5 on the dot, I was in Mr. Harrison's office. He greeted me with a handshake and that professional look that inspired confidence. Mrs. Evans, please sit down. Tell me what's going on. And I told him everything. Every word. Every detail. The trip. Isabelle's note. Lauren in my house. The conversation with Ethan. The half-filled notarized document. Mr. Harrison listened without interrupting. He took notes. Every now and then, he nodded. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and sighed. Mrs. Evans, what you are describing to me is at best a serious invasion of your privacy, and at worst, preparations for fraud. Fraud? If someone tries to forge your signature or pressure you to affirm under false pretenses, that is fraud and a serious crime. But they are my family. That doesn't change the law. In fact, it makes it worse because there is a relationship of trust they are violating. I rubbed my temples. The headache I had faked that morning was now real. What can I do? Mr. Harrison leaned forward. First, we are going to protect your assets. I am going to make some preliminary notes in the public registry. No one will be able to transfer your property without your explicit consent before a notary. Is that legal? Completely. And it's prudent. Second, I need you to leave that document you found with me. It's evidence. And third, he paused. Do you still trust your son? That question disarmed me. He's my son, I said simply. That's not what I asked you. I looked out the office window. The sunset painted the sky orange and pink, the same colors Robert loved. I don't know, I finally admitted. I no longer know what to think. Mr. Harrison nodded with understanding. Then let's do this. Let's protect your assets while you decide what you want to do with your family. You don't have to make drastic decisions now, but you also cannot remain defenseless. And if they find out I came to you, that's your right, Mrs. Evans. You are not doing anything wrong. You are protecting what is yours. I signed the necessary papers. I left copies of everything. Mr. Harrison promised to have the preliminary notes ready in 2 days. When I left his office, it was already dark. The city lights flickered like earthly stars. I drove slowly back home. I was in no hurry to get to that empty house, to that silence full of questions. When I opened the door, I found something I didn't expect. Isabelle, my granddaughter, was sitting on the porch steps with a small pink suitcase next to her. "Grandma," she said when she saw me. Her eyes were red from crying. "Can I stay with you?" I was paralyzed in the doorway, the keys still in my hand. Isabelle was there alone at 7, 0 inches the evening with a suitcase. "My love, how did you get here?" She stood up. She was wearing a pink sweatshirt and jeans, her hair in a messy ponytail. "By bus and then by taxi." "By bus? All the way from Miami Beach?" She nodded. "Do your parents know where you are?" She shook her head. The tears started falling again. I hugged her right there on the porch under the yellowish light of the exterior lamp. She smelled of sweat and fear, and that blend of strawberry shampoo she had used since she was little. "Come inside, my angel. Come inside." I led her in. I locked the door. I left her suitcase in the living room and guided her to the kitchen. "Are you hungry?" "A little." I made her a ham and cheese sandwich, her favorite. I poured her a glass of milk. I sat across from her and waited. Isabelle ate slowly. Every bite seemed difficult. When she finished, she wiped the crumbs from the table with the palm of her hand. That nervous gesture she made when she needed to talk but didn't know how to start. "Grandma," she finally said, "I have to tell you something. Something I heard." "You can tell me anything." She took a deep breath. "About 2 months ago, Dad and Mom had a really bad fight. I was upstairs doing homework, but I heard them yelling. They hardly ever yell, so I peeked over the stairs." She paused. She took a drink of milk. Dad was saying he couldn't take it anymore, that he was going to lose everything, that his partners were going to sue him. And Mom told him there was a solution, that you had this house, that it was worth a lot of money. I felt a lump in my throat, but I didn't say anything. I needed Isabelle to finish. "Dad said no, that you were his mum, that he couldn't do that to you. But Mom told him that you were alone, that you didn't have anyone but us, that it was better for the house to stay in the family before something happened." "Before something happened?" Isabelle looked down. "Mom said that people your age, they could get sick. They could have accidents. That it was better to be proactive." The words floated in the air like poison. "And what did your dad say?" He was quiet for a long time. And then he said, "Fine, but it has to be done nicely. I don't want my mum to suffer." And Mum told him it was going to be easy. That they just needed you to sign some papers that you wouldn't even realize what they meant. I closed my eyes. Every word was a dagger. "Isabelle, why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I was scared. Scared it was my fault. That I had misunderstood. But then I started seeing things." "What things?" "Mom was talking on the phone with someone. She always locked herself in her bedroom. One day I heard her say, 'In 3 months maximum, I promise you the house will be in our name.' And then about 2 weeks ago, I saw Dad filling out some documents on the computer. When I got closer, he closed the screen quickly, but I managed to see your name, Grandma, and the address of this house. Isabelle started crying again. And then they planned the trip, and I heard Mum tell Dad, "It's perfect. We'll take her with us. Distract her. And in the meantime, someone can check the house to see exactly what's here." And Dad said, "I don't know, Lauren. I feel bad." But Mum told him, "Ethan, either we do this or we lose everything. Is that what you want? For Isabelle to see us fail?" My granddaughter looked at me with those eyes full of guilt, as if she were responsible for her parents' decisions. "That's why I gave you the note. Because I knew Mom was going to take advantage of that day to come here. And I didn't want anything bad to happen to you. I didn't want them to steal from you, Grandma." I hugged her again, this time tighter. "You didn't do anything wrong, Isabelle. Quite the opposite. You saved me. But what's going to happen now? Dad and Mum are super mad. Mum told me I was a traitor, that I ruined everything, that it was my fault we were going to lose the house." "She told you that?" Isabelle nodded, sobbing. "And Dad didn't defend me. He just told me to calm down. That I didn't understand adult things. But I do understand. Grandma, I understand that they wanted to take your house. I understand that's wrong." I got up, walked to the window. Outside the garden was dark. The azaleas were just shadows against the sky. "And that's why you came. Mum said that as soon as we got back to Atlanta, she was going to come and talk to you, to convince you, and that I couldn't interfere, that she would leave me with the neighbor all day if necessary. But I don't want them to convince you of anything. Grandma, this house is yours. Grandpa Robert bought it for you. You told me 1,000 times." She was right. Robert had worked all his life to pay for this house. Every brick had his sweat. Every window. His love. "Do your parents know you're here?" I left them a note. I said I was coming to stay with you, that I wasn't going to let them hurt you. Martha. They must be so worried. Let them worry the way I worried when I heard them planning how to take everything from you. There was an anger in her voice that was not typical of an 1-year-old. It was a righteous anger, an anger I myself was beginning to feel. "My love, even though your parents did bad things, they are still your parents. They love you. Not the way you love me. Grandma." Those words broke me. I sat next to her again. I took her cold hands. "Listen to me closely. We are going to solve this. I don't know how yet, but we are going to solve it. For now, you are staying with me. And tomorrow I will talk to your parents. Are you going to give them the house?" "No." "Are you going to lend them money?" "I don't know. But what I do know is that no one is going to pressure me into making decisions. And no one is going to use my granddaughter as emotional blackmail." Isabelle hugged me, and in that moment I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity. For years, I had made myself small. I had said yes when I wanted to say no. I had given in to keep the peace. I had accepted scraps of attention from my son because I was afraid of being completely alone. But now, with Isabelle trembling in my arms, I understood something fundamental. I was not alone. I had this brave girl who had risked everything to protect me. And I had something more important. I had dignity. That night, I prepared the guest room for Isabelle. I lent her a pair of my pajamas, which were huge on her. We laughed a little when she put them on, and the sleeves covered her hands. "You look like a ghost," I told her. "A protective ghost," she replied. I tucked her into bed. I kissed her on the forehead. "Grandma," she whispered. "Do you think Mom and Dad hate me now?" "No. My love. They are confused and scared. But they don't hate you." "And do you hate me for causing so much trouble?" "Hate you? Isabelle, you are the best thing I have in this world." She smiled. And for the first time in hours, she seemed to relax. "Good night, Grandma." "Good night, my angel." I turned off the light and closed the door halfway. I went downstairs to the living room. My phone was blowing up. 10 missed calls from Ethan. 5 from Lauren. 3 text messages. I read them. "Ethan, Mom. Isabelle is gone. Is she with you? Please answer." "Ethan, Mom. I need to know if my daughter is okay. Don't play with this." "Lauren, Martha. Please tell Isabelle we love her. That everything is going to be fine. We just want her to come back." I wrote a single message. "Isabelle is with me. She's fine. We'll talk tomorrow." Immediately, the phone started ringing. "Ethan." I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the notebook where Robert used to write his reflections. I kept it in the coffee table drawer. I turned the pages until I found one he had written shortly before he died. It said, "Victoria, if you ever feel lost, remember this. The most valuable thing we have is not this house. It's not the money. It's the ability to look at ourselves in the mirror and know that we lived with dignity. Never allow anyone, not even our son, to take that away from you. I love you. Frank." I closed the notebook, and I knew exactly what I had to do. I couldn't sleep that night. I thought of all the women who must have kept silent out of fear, to maintain family peace, to avoid being the problem. As I tell all this, I wonder where you might be listening to me. Write the name of your city in the comments. I want to know how many of us have had to choose between family and our own dignity. I woke up early the next morning. Isabelle was still asleep. I made coffee. I sat in the garden. The azaleas needed trimming. Yes, but they were still beautiful. At 8:00 the morning, I heard a car pull up in front of the house. Ethan and Lauren had returned from Miami Beach. And "Everything completely normal," she stated. "Don't let them know you're watching. The best evidence comes when they feel safe." That night, I sat in my study with headphones on, watching the day's recordings. Their return from the errand. The conversation in the kitchen as they unpacked groceries. "He's too quiet," Elena said, her voice tight with worry. "It's suspicious. We need another approach. Julian leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The direct hit didn't work. Time for the indirect hit. I saved the file, dated it, and labeled it Evidence Log Entry 1. The following days allowed me to build my case. February 28th. Julian discussed contingency plans. March 1st. Elena worried that I was acting strangely. March 2nd. They looked up lawyers to challenge my mental competency. March 3rd. Julian's search history showed declarations of parental incapacity. Every conversation was documented, saved, and organized into folders by topic. I watched them conspire against me with the methodical patience of someone building a legal case brick by brick. Veronica sent weekly reports, their social media activity, online purchases, public record searches, the digital trail of people preparing for war. On March 4th, I decided to give them exactly what they wanted. At breakfast, I rubbed my temples. I've been feeling so tired lately. Their heads snapped up like bloodhounds on a scent. That night at dinner, I feigned forgetting where I had left my reading glasses. I've been very forgetful. Elena leaned forward, feigning concern. Maybe you should see a doctor. Dad. It's normal at your age, Julian added casually, but it's definitely worth checking out. I nodded, playing the confused old man. Later, reviewing the recording, I saw them celebrate my confession as if it were a gift. On the night of March 18th, after 3 weeks of evidence, dozens of conversations, and hundreds of hours of recording, I opened my phone and found Harrison Cole's number. Tomorrow, we would build a strategy. It was time to move from documentation to action. The articles appeared on March 5th. I found them scattered on the kitchen counter that morning. Printed pages about cognitive decline, the early symptoms of dementia, and the importance of medical evaluation for seniors. Elena was by the coffee maker watching my reaction. I found this online. I thought it might be helpful to understand what's been happening with you. I picked up the first article and skimmed it with appropriate confusion. I suppose reading wouldn't hurt. Knowledge is power, Julian added from the doorway. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I took the articles to my study, photographed each page, and filed them as evidence. Psychological manipulation documented. They were constructing a narrative. The confused old man who needed intervention, who couldn't be trusted to handle his own affairs. Over the next 3 days, more articles appeared. Residences for people with dementia. The importance of power of attorney. Financial management for those experiencing cognitive difficulties. Each one was carefully placed where I would find it. Each one was photographed and filed. On March 8th, the surveillance cameras caught them in the living room, believing they were alone. "We need an expert opinion," Julian said. "Someone who can evaluate him professionally." "A psychologist?" Elena's voice held equal parts hope and guilt. "I know someone. Dr. Elias Thorne. A clinical psychologist specializing in elderly cognition. We set up a casual lunch. I introduce them. Elias makes observations. Will he do it ethically? Will he be objective? If your father shows symptoms, Elias documents them, If not, Julian shrugged, then we'll know for sure. I watched this conversation 3 times, taking notes. The tension was escalating. They were seeking external validation for their version of events. On March 10th, I met Julian for lunch at a cafe in Coconut Grove. He had suggested it that morning so we can get to know each other better without the stress of work. And I accepted with appropriate gratitude. Dr. Elias Thorne joined us 15 minutes in. Hey, this is my friend Elias. I mentioned him. The psychologist. We shook hands. Elias. About 40-something. Professional demeanor. Cautious eyes. Julian told me about you. Successful sale. Congratulations. We talked for an hour. My performance was impeccable. I occasionally searched for words, asked Elias to repeat questions, and commented on my forgetfulness. I didn't exaggerate, just a hint of confusion. Elias maintained professional distance, but I caught him watching me, evaluating, cataloguing. It was a pleasure meeting you, Elias said as lunch ended, handing me his card. If you ever want to discuss professional topics, I'm available. I put the card in my pocket. Evidence, not service. That night, the surveillance cameras recorded Julian calling Elias from the living room, the speakerphone on. What did you think? Julian asked impatiently. He's 63. Some age-appropriate variation in memory isn't unusual. Elias's voice was carefully neutral. I can't make clinical assessments based on an informal lunch conversation. But if there were genuine concerns, I could evaluate him formally, with his consent. Yes. But Julian, I'm not comfortable being part of this. If you have legitimate concerns about his well-being, there are proper channels. Sure. I'm just exploring options. After hanging up, Julian's face darkened. We'll find someone else. I saved that recording with particular satisfaction. Even when they tried to corrupt professionals, ethics intervened. From March 12th to 17th, I continued my performance. Small errors, confusion, repeated questions. On the 15th, at breakfast, I asked Elena about the plans we had discussed the night before, feigning forgetfulness. Her eyes lit up with excitement, barely concealed. The surveillance cameras recorded everything. Their conversations about my decline. Julian researching commitment procedures. Elena worrying that things were moving too slowly. On March 18th, I adjusted my strategy. At dinner, I casually commented that I had been thinking about updating my will. Julian suggested it given the business sale. I want to make sure everything is in order. A dead silence fell. Then Elena, trying to sound nonchalant. That's responsible. Dad, when are you meeting with him? He'll be preparing the documents soon. Making sure you're well taken care of. I left the words hanging in the air. Bait in a trap. After dinner, I retreated to my study. The surveillance cameras recorded them in the kitchen. They spoke in low voices, but the microphone caught everything. He mentioned the will, Elena said, barely containing her hope. That doesn't mean he's changing it in our favor. Julian's voice held a warning. It could be the opposite. But if he really is confused, if we document that he's not competent when making changes, then we challenge them later. Either way, we need more evidence of his decline. Real evidence, not just observations. They talked for 40 minutes, planning how to document my supposed incompetence. Video, everything. Record strange behavior. Build a case for incapacity that would invalidate any legal change against their interests. I watched them celebrate their cleverness, pouring wine and toasting to progress. They thought they were winning. I closed the laptop, opened my phone, and searched for Harrison Cole's number. 3 weeks of recordings, conversations, plans, attempts at manipulation, psychological warfare, all captured with perfect digital clarity. Tomorrow, we would discuss how weeks of evidence could be turned into a legal strategy, how surveillance could be a tool for pressure, how their own words could destroy them. I had documented their plan with the same methodical patience they had used on mine. Only I had done it better. With more detail. With more strategy. It was time to move to the next phase. It was time to show them what happened when they underestimated a man who built an empire from scratch, who understood that true power lay in preparation, documentation, and knowing exactly when to strike. I texted Harrison, "I have new compelling evidence. Need an urgent meeting." He responded in minutes. Friday at 10, 0 inches the morning. Bring everything. I hung up the phone. Through the study window, the moonlight painted the lawn silver. In the house around me, they slept soundly, believing they were the architects of my ruin. They had no idea they were building their own. The morning light streamed through the study windows. March 19th at 8, I picked up the phone and dialed Harrison Cole's direct number. He answered on the second ring. "Mr. Sterling, your message said you had evidence." Weeks of it. Surveillance recordings, conversations, attempts at manipulation, all documented. I need to meet today. This afternoon at 2, bring everything. I spent the morning organizing it. I created a folder on my laptop called Legal Evidence Package. Surveillance files copied, organized by date and severity. Printed transcripts of their most damning conversations. Julian talking about competency challenges. Elena worried about my suspicious silence. Both celebrating their supposed progress toward controlling my assets. Veronica's weekly reports went into a manila envelope, underlined and tabbed. I loaded everything onto 2 USB drives, one for Harrison and one backup. At 2, I sat across from Harrison in his conference room, the USB drive and documents between us, like exhibits in a trial. He watched 3 hours of recording, read all the transcripts, and studied Veronica's behavioral analysis. Finally, he leaned back, fingers interlaced. "This is extensive. Multiple legal options, restraining orders, civil lawsuit, criminal charges for attempted poisoning." He tapped the trust document I had mentioned. "But first, we protect your assets. Irrevocable living trust." How does that work? Assets are transferred to the trust. It becomes an independent legal entity. An independent trustee administers it. You set the conditions for beneficiary access. Once signed, they are untouchable. Not even you can modify them. He pulled out a notepad and began sketching the structure. We'll make it bulletproof. They won't be able to access it through lawsuits, manipulate the administrators, or effectively challenge it. How long would it take? A week. If we act now, you'll transfer the majority of your assets. Keep enough liquidity for personal use. We'll establish strict conditions for Elena's eventual access. What conditions? Harrison smiled. A sharp professional grin. Whatever you want. Age requirements. Financial independence. Absence of pending lawsuits. In short, any measure that ensures she cannot access the money through coercion or fraud. Over the next 5 days, we built an impenetrable fortress around my wealth. March 20th. Trust structure designed. $25 million transferred to the trust. $5 million kept liquid for my use. Elena could access it at age 45, 9 years from now, if she demonstrated 5 years of financial independence and had no civil or criminal cases against her for financial reasons. On March 23rd, a meeting with Florida Fiduciary Services. 2 fiduciary officers, professional and impartial, explained their role. They would follow this document to the letter. No family pressure. No manipulation. No exceptions. March 24th. Final signing. Harrison's conference room again. But this time with a notary and fiduciary officers present. The documents lay across the table like a treaty ending a war. I signed each page. Initialed and dated. The notary officially sealed each signature. Your assets are protected, Harrison said as I put the copies in a leather folder. She cannot manipulate, coerce, or sue you for them. The trust is irrevocable. Case closed. I drove home with a feeling I hadn't felt since February. Power. Control. Security. At home, life continued its strange theatre. They still knew nothing of the trust. The surveillance cameras recorded their casual conversations about the inheritance. Their certainty that eventually my money would be theirs. March 28th. Breakfast. Buttered toast. Elena mentioned when we inherit, as if it were inevitable. That night, Julian's laptop search history, how to challenge a will in Florida. I decided to tell them on April 1st, an auspicious date for plans to unravel. On March 31st, I texted both of them. Family meeting tomorrow. 10:00 inches the morning. In the living room. Important. Harrison had advised doing it in public or with witnesses. They could become aggressive. My house, I replied. My rules. The cameras would record everything. April 1st arrived. A clear, bright day. I set up my laptop connected to the television with the surveillance footage ready. At 10, they entered the living room. A palpable, nervous energy in the air. I stood. They sat. The sofa was lower than I was, establishing a hierarchy. I have made decisions about my estate. I filed the trust document. I have created an irrevocable living trust. Their attention sharpened. I explained systematically. $25 million transferred. Independent trustee. Conditions of access. Minimum age 45. Financial independence. No pending lawsuits. I watched their faces register comprehension. What? Elena's voice cracked. Are you cutting me out? I am protecting my assets from manipulation. Julian leaped up from the sofa. All this over the restaurant. A mistake. And you? A mistake. I picked up the remote and hit play. Their voices filled the room. Surveillance footage. Them talking about my competency issues. Planning to document my decline. Celebrating their progress toward the inheritance. You spied on us, Elena cried now. Your own daughter. I protected myself from those who tried to drug me into signing legal documents. We're going to sue. Julian stepped forward, poorly disguising his aggression. We're going to challenge this. You can't. It's irrevocable. It's done. Legally bulletproof. I looked him in the eyes without blinking. Try to challenge it. Don't waste your money on lawyers. We've lived here for 5 years. We have rights. You have no rights to my money. You never did. Julian stormed out. Elena followed, sobbing. I went back to my study, reviewed the camera recording of the confrontation I had just captured, saved it with the date and time, and a label, evidence of reaction. The rage confirmed their guilt. The following week, the house became a battlefield. Doors slamming. Hostile silence. Calls to lawyers were overheard, all saying the same thing. The trust was solid, unshakable. On April 7th, Elena attempted reconciliation. She knocked on my study door, tears welling up. Dad, we can fix this. I'm your daughter. My daughter would never have tried to poison me. It was a mistake. Please leave my study. She left. I sat alone, staring at the wall, knowing what came next. The trust protected my money. Now, I needed to reclaim my house. I opened my notebook and wrote 4 words: get them out of the house. That same night, I called a real estate agent, Linda Moretti, recommended by my banker for her discretion and speed. I want to sell my house. When can we list it? I can see it tomorrow morning. If it's as you describe, we could list it this weekend. April 8th. She arrived with a tape measure and a professional appraisal. I walked through the rooms where my daughter and son-in-law still lived, evaluating the market value of the house they were borrowing. A lovely property. I can list it for $7 million. This market moves fast, but the property must be vacant for showings. It will be. The listing went live on April 10th. First showings scheduled for April 12th. I notified Elena and Julian via text message. Showings Friday. You'll need to be out for 3 hours. You're selling the house? Julian replied by text. Yes. There was no response. They left on Friday morning. And when they returned, they found business cards from potential buyers on the kitchen counter. Their faces registered the comprehension that I was completely dismantling their life. On April 15th, I asked Harrison to draft the eviction notice formal, legal, final, giving them 60 days to vacate. I handed it to them that night as they sat in the living room. their borrowed living room. Julian read it, his face darkening. He tore it in half. "You can't evict us. This is our home." Read the notice. "Challenge it all you want. No lease. No rent. No tenant rights. 60 days. June 15th. We'll fight this. Try it." They hired a lawyer on April 16th. I listened to their consultation call via surveillance cameras. The lawyer's assessment matched Harrison's. If there's no lease, he has grounds. You live there by permission, which he is now revoking. Harrison filed the eviction lawsuit on April 20th. The court date was set for May 3rd, 3 weeks away. Meanwhile, I rented an apartment downtown, month-to-month lease. Oceanfront. Quiet. A clean place. No grudges. I moved out on April 28th. The house became hostile territory. I stayed mostly at the apartment, returning only for necessities. On each visit, the surveillance cameras captured their desperation. Elena crying, Julian raging, both calling lawyers who had no solutions. May 10th arrived. Miami-Dade Courthouse. 3rd floor. Eviction trial. Harrison and I sat at the plaintiff's table. Across the aisle, Elena, Julian, and their lawyer. Young and overmatched. Aware he had no case. Judge Vance took the bench. A man in his 52nds, serious-looking, experienced in seeing people try to evade consequences. Their lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my clients have lived in this property for 5 years." "Under what agreement?" Judge Vance interrupted. "His family. The plaintiff is Ms. Sterling Fox's father." "That is not a lease agreement." "Do they pay rent?" "No." "Do they have a written lease?" "No, Your Honor." "Then they are guests without a contract." "Mr. Sterling has given appropriate 60-day notice." He looked at Harrison. "Yes." "Your Honor, served on April 15th. They have until June 15th to vacate." Judge Vance reviewed the documents. "I see no legal impediment to this eviction. The plaintiff is the owner of the property. The defendants have no lease or rental agreement. Notice was proper." He looked at Elena and Julian. "You have until June 15th. After that date, law enforcement can intervene." Motion granted. The gavel cracked. Final decision. In the hallway, Julian confronted me, his voice low and menacing. "You'll regret this. You're destroying your own family. I am removing those who poisoned me. We'll make you pay." "With what money?" I walked away, leaving him sputtering in the hallway. The next 5 weeks were a tense standoff. I stayed at the apartment. They remained in the house, packing slowly, desperately searching for rental properties they couldn't afford without my help. The surveillance cameras recorded endless arguments. Elena breaking down, Julian's fury at their complete defeat. On June 14th, I received confirmation. The buyer of the house had completed the inspection and the sale was approved for closing in August. pending possession handover. June 15th was moving day. I arrived at the house at noon. A large moving truck was in the driveway loading furniture. Elena, eyes red, face haggard, gave instructions to the movers. Julian loaded boxes, his jerky movements reflecting contained fury. They didn't even greet me. I stood on the lawn watching them load their possessions. Everything I had bought for them. Everything they had accumulated during 5 years of living off my generosity. The truck pulled away at 4. They drove off in Julian's car without looking back. I entered the empty house, the echo of footsteps ringing on the hardwood floor. No furniture, no trace of them, no trace of poison in the air. Room by room, I walked through the reclaimed space. Marks on the walls where pictures once hung, indentations in the carpet where furniture had been. The house felt like an empty shell, contaminated by what had happened inside, but finally blissfully empty. My phone vibrated. Harrison. Eviction completed. Ready to talk civil lawsuit, I stood in the center of the living room. My living room. Looking around at the emptiness. Selling the house would erase their presence completely. But first, one more legal action. One final blow. I texted back. Yes. Let's schedule a meeting for Monday. It's time for this to be definitive. I wrote my reply to Harrison. Yes. Let's schedule the meeting for Monday. It was time for this to be permanently on the record. The empty living room surrounded me. No furniture. Just the hardwood floor and the echo. I sat down, my back against the wall, laptop resting on my knees, and opened the evidence folders one last time. Months of documentation, surveillance recordings ordered by date, hospital medical records, Mateo's statement, Veronica's reports, every conversation, every attempt at manipulation, every proof that what happened to me was not paranoia, but premeditated exploitation. I created a final chronological document, printed everything, and organized it into a tabbed, expanding folder. Each item told part of the story. Taken together, they were undeniable. On Monday morning, June 16th, I met Harrison in his office. He spread the evidence across the conference table as if it were an indictment. Civil lawsuit under Florida Statute 825.103, Harrison said, taking notes. Elder exploitation, financial manipulation, attempted battery by drugging, coercion, aggravated emotional distress, fraud, conspiracy, seeking $500,000 in damages plus costs. This isn't about money, I said. I know. It's about public record documenting what they did. He looked up from his notes. You want consequences? Exactly. We filed the complaint on June 17th. Elena and Julian received the court notification in their new apartment, a small 2-bedroom unit in a neighborhood far removed from the luxury of Coral Gables. The process server reported they had barely unpacked. Their lawyer contacted Harrison a few days later, his voice tight on the speakerphone. My clients can't afford this. They're already ruined. They should have considered that before attempting to drug and defraud their benefactor, Harrison replied coldly. Discovery began. Harrison requested their financial records. Bank statements revealed the truth. No savings. Living paycheck to paycheck on credit cards. Drowning in debt created by their life expectations. On June 28th, the settlement offer arrived. I met Harrison in his office to review it. $50,000 payment plan. Private admission of guilt. No trial. It's reasonable, Harrison said cautiously. They clearly can't pay the full judgment, but the settlement would be confidential. No public record. I slid the papers back across his desk. No. I want this to be public. I want it on the court records forever. Trial is risky. The judge could award less compensation. I don't care about the money. I care about the record. I looked him in the eyes. They tried to destroy me. I want official record that they were wrong and I was right. Harrison nodded slowly. Then we go to trial. July became the month of preparation. Matteo confirmed he would testify. The hospital doctor provided an expert affidavit. Veronica prepared the surveillance evidence for court presentation. I gave a deposition. Hours of questions answered under oath, laying the factual foundation. July 25th. Preliminary hearing. The judge set the trial date for July 28th. That Monday morning dawned clear and hot. I dressed in my best suit and arrived early at the Miami-Dade County Courthouse. Judge Hastings presided. She was in her 50 seconds, known for her impartiality and strong rulings. Harrison had recommended a bench trial instead of a jury trial. Judges understand elder law better than average citizens, he explained. Opening statements. Harrison presented the timeline and evidence summary with meticulous precision. Their lawyer, young and out of his depth, argued that a family misunderstanding had been exaggerated. Matteo testified first. He described the restaurant incident with full conviction. I saw Mrs. So. Sterling Fox pour something from a small vial into Mr. Sterling's wine glass while he was away from the table. Clear. Liquid. Deliberate action. Their lawyer attempted cross-examination. Could you have been mistaken? No. I know what I saw. I couldn't keep quiet. The hospital doctor explained the diazepam analysis results. Dosage. Dangers. Veronica presented the surveillance methodology, chain of custody, and authentication of the recordings. Day 2. July 29th. The surveillance video played on the courtroom screen. Their own voices filled the space, discussing competency issues, planning Elias's consultation, and celebrating their supposed progress toward the inheritance. Julian said, "He's 63, not lucid anymore." Elena's voice said, "We deserve this money." I watched Judge Hastings take notes, her expression serious and focused. Elena testified, crying. She admitted to the restaurant incident, but claimed she only wanted him to listen to her about important papers. Julian testified. Defensive and hostile. He blamed me for overreacting to a family conflict. Then it was my turn. The witness stand felt solemn, formal, everyone watching me. I stated my name, my age, and my relationship to the defendants. I answered Harrison's questions calmly and precisely. Restaurant surveillance, trust creation, eviction, I presented the evidence one by one. Cross-examination became aggressive. "Aren't you being vengeful?" "Mr. Sterling, I'm seeking accountability. There's a difference." Judge Hastings asked her own question. Why pursue a civil suit after fiduciary protection and eviction? I looked straight at her. Because what they did was wrong. It needs to be on public record for my protection, as a precedent for the truth. July 30th. Closing arguments. Harrison, this is a textbook case of elder exploitation, attempted battery by drugging, financial manipulation, psychological coercion. The evidence is overwhelming. Their lawyer, family conflict and poor judgment. Yes, but not criminal exploitation. Judge Hastings closed her notebook. I will issue the ruling in writing in 2 weeks. I left the courthouse in the late afternoon heat with the satisfaction of having completed my task. I spoke the truth publicly, presented the evidence. Now justice would decide if the truth mattered. 2 weeks of waiting. 2 weeks wondering if the system would validate what I had suffered or dismiss it as family drama. I returned to my temporary apartment, watched the sunset over Biscayne Bay, and waited for the world to confirm what I already knew, that I had been right to protect myself, to defend myself, to demand justice. August 15th. The dawn light filtered over the ocean outside my balcony. Coffee steamed in my hand. Bitter. Familiar. Comforting. 2 weeks after the trial ended, the phone rang at 9. "Mr. Sterling. Harrison. We have the verdict." I sat down. The infinite ocean stretching out before me. The judge ruled in your favor. Total victory. Clear and convincing evidence of elder exploitation, attempted financial fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress was found. Judgment for $350,000 plus court costs, $75,000 in punitive damages, $425,000 total. The number seemed abstract. "There's more," Harrison continued. "Permanent restraining order. They are prohibited from contacting you directly or indirectly. No calls. No letters. No communications through third parties. Violation results in contempt charges. And the payment? They have nothing. Court-ordered payment plan. Garnishment of future wages until the debt is settled could take years. But the judgment is public record. Searchable permanent documentation of what they attempted. That's what I wanted. Not the money. Documentation. Validation. Public record that I wasn't paranoid or cruel. That I was the victim of an attack. And I had every right to defend myself. Thank you, Harrison, for everything. You did the work. I just legalized it. After hanging up, I sat watching the sunrise. The written opinion arrived by email an hour later. I read every page. Judge Hastings wrote, "The evidence presented demonstrates the premeditated exploitation of an elderly person by those in positions of trust. The incident at the restaurant, the attempt to drug someone to facilitate document signing, constitutes a felony in itself. Subsequent surveillance recordings reveal ongoing manipulation and planning. This court finds the defendant's actions reprehensible and deserving of the maximum civil sanctions." Reprehensible. Maximum penalty. Public document. I printed the opinion and filed it. One more document in a case now closed. On August 16th, I closed on the sale of the Coral Gables house, sold to a young family for $2.75 million. They will never know what happened within those walls. They will fill it with different memories, different lives, different futures. That same day, I bought a downtown apartment, 10th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, ocean views to the horizon. $850,000 cash purchase from the house sale. Modern, impeccable, no history. I moved in on August 18th. Furniture arrived and was simply placed. Nothing excessive. Nothing unnecessary. The space felt like taking a breath after being underwater. August 20th. Last meeting with Veronica in her Pinewood office. The certification still hung on the wall. Case closed, she said, handing me a USB drive. All the surveillance recordings, reports, and documentation. Go on the record that I thank you for everything. You made it easy. They were predictable. She stood and extended her hand. Take care. Mr. Sterling. We shook hands. The matter concluded. The professional relationship was over. On August 22nd, I sat on my new balcony, phone in hand. I searched for Elena's contact, my finger hovering over the screen. Delete contact. A confirmation box popped up. I pressed yes. Her name vanished. Julian's followed. Both disappeared from my phone, from my life, from my future. The restraining order legally barred them from communication. Even if they wanted to apologize, reconcile, or explain, the law prevented it. 3 years minimum. Enough time for life to move on without them. I felt nothing. Neither satisfaction nor sadness. Just a serene peace. On August 23rd and 24th, I established new routines. Coffee on the balcony in the morning. Walks by the sea in the afternoon. Reading at night with the sound of the ocean drifting through the open windows. I called old friends I had neglected during the chaos. Made lunch plans. Reconnected. And rebuilt my social life outside of surveillance and legal battles. On August 25th, the sunset painted the sky in layers. Orange blending into purple. Then deep blue. I stood on my balcony, coffee cooling in my hand, watching the day turn into night. 6 months since February. Since that restaurant. Since Matteo's warning. The glass switch. And everything that followed. I protected my assets through the trust. Evicted them from my house. Held them accountable with a civil judgment. And put their exploitation on public record. I won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like survival, like emerging from dark waters and realizing I was still breathing. My daughter had tried to poison me. That truth weighed on me. Unchangeable. But I refused to be a victim. I refused to accept the manipulation. I refused to let trust make me vulnerable to destruction. The ocean stretched infinitely. The horizon line crisp and defined. Somewhere in the city behind me, Elena and Julian lived with the consequences. A court debt that would follow them for years. a public record that affected their job applications and background checks, a restraining order that prevented them from spinning their story or seeking reconciliation on their own terms. I didn't hate them. Hate required energy, attention, emotional dedication, all that I had dedicated to documentation, preparation, and legal battles. Now I only had peace. The sun touched the horizon. The colors deepened, and the city lights began to twinkle behind me. My coffee was cold, but I didn't move to refill it. I simply stood there, watching the cycle of nature continue, oblivious to human drama. I built an empire from nothing, sold it for $30 million, protected $25 million through an unshakable trust, lost a daughter, but saved myself. I found justice in the courts, and peace in separation. Some stories end with family reunions, forgiveness, and healing. This one ended with distance, documentation, and the relief of being safe. The sun disappeared behind the ocean, darkness settling around me. I finished my cold coffee, left the cup on the balcony railing, and watched the stars appear. Tomorrow I would call my former partner about that consulting opportunity. Next week, I would have lunch with friends. Eventually, I would date, travel, and fill my days with something other than litigation. But tonight I simply stood here, free, protected, alone, but not lonely. The ocean whispered against the shore below. The city hummed with its infinite rhythm. Life went on, indifferent to individual struggles, offering new days to those who survived old battles. I had survived, and that was enough. If you liked this story,